So, welcome to our slow flow, and hopefully, my lighting is okay. I've got the candles going. As always, there's a playlist that you can use. We're going to be starting seated, and so you can make your way to your mats. And because we're doing a grounding evening practice this evening, if you do have any props nearby, so even if it's cushions or blankets or towels, things like that, just to make everything a little bit more comfortable. And you might have the opportunity to use them in some of the poses to enhance your pose as well. Um, Same thing goes with I forgot to tell you, but a wall. And again, if there's not one nearby, that's okay. We'll make do as well. But if you have a wall nearby, that will also be a nice enhancement to the end of the practice. So I'm going to make my way to my mat, and then we can start. So as you can see, I've got something extra here today as well. I've got this big long bolster as well. And so again, it kind of looks like a couch cushion. So if you have those nearby, that helps, especially when we're on our backs and we want our knees bent. Okay, so we're going to start seated, as I said. So take a nice tall seat. If you have something to sit on, it's always nice to elevate the hips over the knees. So as we're recording this, it's Friday night. And so this is the ideal way for me to unwind after a week. And I hope you can use it for the same, but you could always use this class morning, afternoon, evening, just whenever you need a little bit of a recharge, reset, and relax. We'll start by closing our eyes, rolling the shoulders back and down, and coming to our mat. We always notice that when we begin, everybody's starting from a different place. Our days are behind us. You may have had to rush here. You may have just finished doing something. And so as we settle into our seat, we feel those layers start to stack again. All of that energy, sometimes frenetic, we start to rein it in. We start to come to our senses, literally. As we tune into the sensation of the air on the skin, of our seat on our cushion or the earth. The light in the room, the flickering of any candles behind the eyelids, and sounds near or distant. We take the opportunity to re-embody ourselves. to descend into our earthly bodies, away from the fire of action and the airiness of thinking, maybe even out of the depths of emotion, just to be here. As always, we set the intention in our practice to be here, to listen to the body's messages as we move. If there's any pain, sharp shooting, crunching, pinching, numbness or tingling in the extremities, then we back off, we reset, and perhaps we go back a level or try a different position, come into something comfortable. If there's dizziness or lightheadedness, we ground, come into a child's pose or something equally grounding to reset. My theme this week has been alignment. And so we've been exploring how we can physically align our bodies, how we can align ourselves off the mat with our values, with our passions, with the messages within our body. And so today on the mat, I want to continue this journey as we destroy and uncreate any preconceived notions, any expectations that we have of us, of who we are, of what we should be doing. And we really just listen. We follow our awareness and be real. And that is alignment. Not aligned to an external ideal, an ideal that has probably been planted inside of us somewhere, somehow, but to be in the moment. And really listen. Slowly flutter your eyelids open. And 3 times you're going to reach out to the side, all the way up to the sky. Exhale, hands down through the center and bow. 2 more of those. Inhaling, sweeping the arms up. And exhaling, drawing those hands down. And 1 more time. And thumbs to the heart. Bow to yourself. Perhaps set your own intention for today's class, for this evening, for this wind down. And then we're going to inhale, reach those arms up again, and then let the shoulders drop down away from the ears. The arms can be in a Y. Whatever feels like, you can continue to stay aligned so you can feel the spine stacked just naturally, the ribs over the pelvis, the head and the neck, and then those shoulders are resting behind the rib cage on the back there. Let's take a few more breaths with the arms up like this, energizing, taking in, receiving. And then we'll interlace the fingers behind the back of the head and then draw those elbows forward and let the shoulder blades fall down onto the back. And then we're just going to flow a little bit here. As we inhale, we're going to draw that chin towards our chest. As we inhale, that's as we exhale, we're going to draw our chin towards the chest. As we inhale, we're going to open those elbows up and widen the heart center, leaning back into the hands a little bit. So we exhale, draw the chin in slightly, feel a stretch at the back of the shoulders. Inhale, expose the heart. Let's do that 3 more times. Kind of like butterfly wings here. Beautiful. And last one, we're going to hold that sunny day pose and almost feel like you can lift the base of the skull out of the neck, elongating the neck, resting the head in the hands, releasing the tension in the face, and feeling that nice stretch to the shoulders, the triceps, the chest. Beautiful. Come back to center. Reach those arms up again. This time, left arm comes down to the side. We start to reach up and over with the right. You can start to bend that left elbow as you lean to the left. Just noticing how many parts of that right side of the body you can lengthen. So as you pin down that right hip, you can feel it through the hip, through the side body, the waist, maybe even the ribs. Maybe as you start to roll that armpit open, you can get into the shoulder and stretch out through the fingertips. Inhale all the way up and come to the other side, right hand down, left arm up and over, bending that right elbow. And again, you can always close your eyes to really tap into every sensation here. What happens when you ground down through that left hip more? What happens when you spin that left armpit up? What happens when you reach a little bit more through the fingers? Nice. Come all the way back up. And again, we're going to bring that left hand down. This time, right hand is going to come to that left ear. Left fingertips are on the earth, and we slowly bring that right ear towards the right shoulder. You might not have the right hand there. It might be enough to just tip the head, or you can gently traction that ear up and away from the left shoulder. Your fingertips of the left hand are anchoring you down on that left side as we get some length through the left side of the neck. And we breathe here. And inhale back up to center. Release the right hand down. With or without the hand on the ear, we tilt the left ear to the left shoulder. As again, we can explore, experiment with our positioning, with our alignment. What happens if we ground more through the right fingertips? What happens if we tilt the chin back just a tiny bit? Roll the shoulder blade on the back. Nice. And then slowly release that. And we're going to just make semicircles with our with our head, bringing the right ear to the right shoulder, swooping the chin down towards the chest, over to the left, and then other way. Let's do that 3 more times. Just rolling out that neck. And then after that last time, we come back up to neutral. And sit tall. Bring the elbows behind the back. Take a hold of the forearms or the elbows with the opposite hand. Roll the shoulders back and down. Stay here for a moment. The forearms may be resting just at the crest of the hips there. And imagine they can further ground you down into the earth. Draw the shoulders on the back and widen through the collarbones. And then perhaps you could start to fold forward, just letting the head and the neck go, rounding through the spine. And then come all the way back up. And for the sake of balance, if you had one foot forward, let's bring the opposite foot forward and then cross the arms the opposite way too. It'll be whichever one doesn't come naturally right away. And again, we'll let those forearms rest on the crest of the pelvis there at the back. Imagining yourself rooting down, heavy from the hips down, and then the shoulders roll on the back, the heart exposes. Do we feel any differences on this side? And then slowly we can curl forward, let the head and the neck go, round through the spine, and let go here. And then slowly come all the way up. Release the hands. Bring the legs out in front of you. Give them a little shake. And then we're going to come forward onto our hands and knees. Unlike a lot of our classes where we're really working our way from the ground up, this time we're going to be starting with a little more movement and working down. Working down so that by the end of the class, you could just stay there and rest. Hands under the shoulders, knees under the hips. Let's do a few cat-cows here, linking breath to movement as we inhale, opening that front body, as we exhale, opening the back body. So we're just linking that breath to movement and really noticing what's happening. Following the messages of the body. If the body wants to move side to side a little bit, go for it. If it wants to make some circles, go for it. One more round of breath. Full inhale and full exhale. And then come back to center. Let's come into our shoulder flow, walking the hands forward a little bit. We exhale, draw the hips back, and we inhale, drag the nose along the mat, elbows out to the side, until the nose comes to about the thumbs and we press back up. Let's keep doing that. And then fine-tuning it. Just noticing, sensing what's happening in different parts of the body. As we come back, you can notice what's going on in the hips and the pelvis and the back, lower back especially. As we inhale forward, tune into the arm bones and what's happening in that shoulder joint. Movement can start to bring blood flow, bring energy flow, bring fluidity to those joints so that they start to trust us, open up a little bit more. Last one, all the way back and drag it forward. Beautiful. Bring the knees back under the hips and come down on the elbows. The forearms are parallel, the hands are on the earth. So you're like almost in a dolphin pose or forearm stance where the arms are number 11s. And again, we're going to do 4 rounds of cat-cow-like movement with our elbows on the ground. So we inhale, look up, and we exhale, curl. And just continue that 3 more times, tapping into what it feels like to really move from that pelvis, tilting forward and back, and how the upper body changes when we come down onto the elbows like this. One more time. Nice. And then we come back to neutral. And we're going to get into the hips a little bit here. Staying on the forearms, you could always interlace the fingers too. We'll bring up that right leg and do some slow circles with that knee. Just waking up the hip joint, activating the muscles, all 360 degrees. We'll do 3 in one direction and then reverse 3 in the other direction. So the key here is slow, mindful, beautiful. And release that one. And then the other knee comes up. And again, 3 slow, mindful circles. And the other direction. Great. And then knees apart, toes together. Press yourself back into a child's pose. Find a place where your head can hang out. So whether it's on your fists on a cushion or all the way on the floor, make sure you have some pressure in the center of the forehead. And you can just let go, even with a big sigh, it might help. Giving over any extra tension you may be holding in the face, down into the earth. She can handle it. Beautiful. So we're going to press back up and we're going to come into a frog pose. Yes, a frog pose right away. It's not usual to get into the inner thighs like this during my classes right away, but I think it'll be a good experience. So if you know that your inner thighs are tight, you can always have something nearby, a cushion or a pillow. I'm going to have my bolster here. And on hands and knees, we start to walk the knees apart from each other. So yes, they may not come as far as you think, but that's kind of my point here. We have no expectations here at the beginning of the class. We're going to bring the legs so that they're parallel. So the lower legs are parallel and the toes are pointing out to the side. Now, if you have hardwood floors, you may want to bring a blanket or something underneath the knees as well. because it can get uncomfortable depending on how tight your hips are. Once those knees are as far as apart as they can go, you could stay here with the hands under the shoulders, or you could come down onto your cushion on elbows and release the head and the neck. As you soften here, you may even come further down, finding a comfortable place, but remembering that comfortable probably doesn't mean you are clenching your teeth, holding your breath. If you find yourself going a little bit too far, you just come back a level. Now a little bit of flow here in our frog pose. We're going to just inhale, shift forward slightly with the body, and exhale, shift those sit bones back. And just 3 more times. Come back and forth. And after this last round, you'll listen to your body as it tells you where it wants to pause. And we'll hold there. Release through the shoulders, release through the head and the neck, release through the face. And slowly press those hands back onto the floor under the shoulders. Shimmy those knees back towards each other, and you can move any props out of the way. Nice. You're going to plant the hands down on the earth, curl the toes under, come into your first downward facing dog, and just walk it out a little bit. Nice. So the next unconventional beginning pose we're going to come into is a supported pigeon. Now, if pigeon is making you already clench your teeth, you can always come into what I call the lazy pigeon, which means that that back leg is not straight behind you. It's bent at the side here, and we're coming down. I'm bringing my left knee by my left wrist, and for full pigeon, left knee by left wrist, left leg crossing across the mat, and that right leg is straight back behind us. So again, that's an option. Or lazy pigeon. I don't like the word lazy, but it describes it well, where that back hip is down. And now again, if you have a blanket or a cushion or something, you could make this supported by maybe wedging it under that left buttock and giving yourself some support, or even having something to come down on. Get nice and long through the body in whichever version you're in, and then start to walk yourself down onto a prop or your elbows, or all the way down to the earth. And then take the first few breaths to rock a little bit from left to right. And without any preconceived notion of where you should be, let your body tell you. In a previous class this week, I described it as when the body sighs with relief. So we've all had that feeling where you get into a stretch, and it's almost as if whatever you're stretching goes, oh, she found it. Oh, they found it, finally. So when you get that kind of relief, that lightness, that knowing, you stay there. And just like everything else, it may change, it may shift as we hold. So you could always readjust, you could go deeper. And then slowly start to press yourself up. Remove any props from around you. And then we all come down on that left buttock. Bend that right knee and come into this deer pose where the left foot meets the right knee. Both legs are bent to about 90 degrees. So one of my teachers used to call this mermaid pose. And we're going to go for a little flow here. So we'll take that right hand and draw a semicircle around us, sweeping it up and over as it comes towards the left. And then we sweep it back towards the right, and then the left makes the semicircle and comes up and over. So let's do that 3 more times. So we're feeling still some stretch through those hips, but now also getting some side body stretching. We can feel those intercostals between the ribs getting opened up. And then come all the way back to center. Come back onto hands and knees. You can come into a child's pose, you can wiggle it out, or you can reset in a down dog and walk those legs out. And then we've got our pigeon or lazy pigeon on the second side. So right knee comes towards the right wrist. And then we either come down onto the right buttock and bend that back knee, coming over that front leg at whatever angle feels right. Or we could keep that back leg straight behind us. Take any props we need underneath that right sit bone, and then start to fold forward from a nice long body. Coming onto a prop, onto the elbows, or all the way to the earth. Let me just breathe here into that hip. Again, taking the first few moments to shift left and right and to let your body tell you where your alignment is. What really truly feels aligned. Where do you feel that sigh of relief? Or even that curiosity of the body that says, oh, can you look into that place a little bit more? You may melt deeper as we hold the pose. You may shift, readjust. And then slowly we come on up. And then we let that right sit bone come all the way down to the earth. Come into deer pose on this side. So the right foot meets the left knee. Both legs are bent to 90 degrees out towards the left. And we take that left hand and sweep it around in a semicircle up and over the right ear, and then over to the other side, following with the right arm. So it's almost like we're anchored to the earth with this, the base of our legs. And our torso is free to move, free to stretch. And then one more time. Beautiful. Come all the way back up. And then come back to hands and knees. Wiggle it out. Come into down dog and pedal it out. Whatever works. Nice. So either from down dog or from hands and knees, we're going to step the right foot between the hands. And then walk that left knee back. Again, if you need some cushioning behind the back knee, underneath the back knee, you can get that now. And we're in this low lunge here. And so with the fingertips on the earth or on some sort of props, we're just going to shift backwards a little bit, maybe extending through that front leg, and then forwards. So just get some movement in the hips here in this asymmetrical pose. 2 more breaths. And 1 more. When you come back to that low lunge, bring both hands to the inside edge of that right leg. Perhaps you have a prop or something that you can bend the elbows onto. Perhaps you just bend the elbows and sigh the heart down, or you might be able to get all the way down to the earth into pigeon pose. Let go of the head and the neck and start your exploration. Without a teacher here to tell you how this is supposed to look, how lizard is supposed to look, what feels good for that right hip joint right now? Sometimes the knee coming in towards the shoulder feels good. Sometimes it wants to flop out. Sometimes the answer is somewhere in between. You notice in your body what it needs right now. Check in, make sure you're not holding onto the jaw or the shoulders. And 1 more nice breath here. Slowly press yourself up and walk back. Either wiggle it out on hands and knees or come into a down dog and pedal it out. And then we'll be coming to the other side. So left foot steps between the hands, either from down dog or hands and knees. We walk the right knee back as far as we can. I like to keep the right toes curled under just for this movement part. Brings a little bit more muscle energy and integrity to those hips. As we inhale, we sit those hips back. Extend through that front leg. As we exhale, we draw that pelvis forward. So just getting a little bit of movement here. Waking up the left hip joint. And one more time. Meet back in that low lunge. Bring both hands to the inner edge of the left leg. And then maybe you just sigh the heart down, release the head and the neck. Maybe you can start to bend the elbows. Maybe you have something nearby to bring the elbows down onto, or maybe they can get all the way to the floor. Release the head and the neck, release the jaw, release the space between the eyebrows. Let the shoulders fall away from the ears. And let the breath be soft and smooth. Let that left hip decide what it wants. It may be different from the right. And we trust that the body is aiming to get us more symmetrical. Now, knowing that the place where it finds relief, where it sighs, is not always the easy place either. It's usually a place where you feel a good stretch, a deep tissue massage. So it's not always the easy route. But it's also not the route where struggling, holding your breath, clenching your jaw, and pushing through. Not this time. Without all of our preconceived notions of how we are supposed to be, how to get results, how to find success, what would we really be doing? Take one more breath here, softening. And then press back up. And this time come back into a child's pose again. Knees apart, toes together. Resting the head down on something. Hips back towards the heels. And from here, we get to make our way back to our backs. Or no, we haven't even been on our backs yet. So it's not even back to our backs. To our backs for the first time. So bend the knees and slowly lower yourself down. Bring the feet mat width apart, knees falling in towards each other. And just settle in here. We haven't been on our backs yet. So you can let the body readjust for a moment. Letting the pelvis settle into the earth. And now walk the feet towards each other and let the knees fall out to the sides into a Baddha Konasana, reclined cobblers or reclined butterfly, whatever you'd like to call it. Heels you get to determine where the heels are in relation to your sit bones. So maybe you'd like to draw them closer in, maybe they're further away, making more of a diamond shape. Bring the hands to the abdomen, let the shoulders fall back into the earth. Let gravity open your inner thighs. Draw those knees down. If you do feel like you're gripping too much, then you can always bring props or pillows or something to get underneath the thighs to just give the body feedback and say, don't worry, you're not hanging out here alone. And close the eyes. There's a balance here. The hands on the abdomen. We're reassuring, we're nourishing, we're drawing inward. Whereas the pose is very open, receptive, almost vulnerable. And you're safe here. You're safe to open and listen to your body cues, to align with exactly what you need to do in this moment. And then slowly draw those knees back in towards each other. Bring the feet hip distance apart. Walk the heels in towards the sit bones. Make sure the knees are facing directly up to the sky. Bring the elbows close into the body. Robot arms, so fingertips up to the sky. Tops of the arm bones are drilling down into the earth. Let's inhale, lift up into a bridge pose here. Pressing into the feet, into the back of the arms, the back of the shoulders, the back of the head. And just lengthen out here. Energizing, activating that back body. Pressing up and out through the knees. Imagining two strings at the corners of the hip bones, lifting you up, suspending you here. And then come all the way back down. We're going to lift the hips up and shift them over to the right here, and then let the knees fall to the left. So it's an open twist. Maybe that left heel can hook onto the outer edge of that right knee and pin it down. You might even stretch the right arm overhead. You may even take that right wrist with the left hand and give it a little more traction. Feel the openness on that right side of the body from fingertips all the way down through the arm, the armpit, the rib cage, the side body, the hips, and even down through the IT band of the right leg. And then release that, come back up to center, pick up the hips, shift them over to the left, let the knees fall to the right. And same thing here, you could let them just hang there. You could hook the right heel on the left knee. You could reach that left arm overhead, even give it a little stretch. How many times through a practice do you let the shoulds determine where you get to hold your pose? It happens to all of us. And yes, some challenge definitely leads to growth. I don't disagree. But there's a time and a place to really, really follow that awareness and let go of all of those judgments, all of those projections, all of the previous points of views you had about you and your body. And release that side. Bring the knees back up to center. Bring the hips back in line. And we're going to take the knees into the hands, but keep the arms outstretched. So there's almost like a balanced action here where the knees are pulling away, but the arms are just suspended there, holding them at about perpendicular to the earth. From here, you can really let that sacrum ground into the earth. You can feel the length of the spine, of the side bodies, even of the front body. And then maybe even you can rock side to side and get a bit of a massage. Nice. And then hug those knees in, and you'll feel how now the lumbar spine is more involved. And you can determine again where those knees come. And maybe you rock here, noticing the difference. Now arms come out to the side, either in a T or in cactus. Knees come over to the left. We look over that right shoulder. It's a different kind of twist than that big open one we did. We let that right arm, that right shoulder soften down towards the earth. If those legs feel unsupported or strained, you can always have a prop to bring between the legs as they fold over to the side, or even something for them to fall on top of if the twist is too deep, coming all the way to the earth. Keep softening that right shoulder towards the earth. And letting gravity draw those legs to the left. And then back up through center. Knees come over to the right side as we look over the left. And again, softening the left shoulder towards the earth. Letting gravity coax the knees towards the right. If you need something between the legs or underneath the right knee for support, that helps. And we come back up to center. Bring the knees towards you, feet up to the sky, and either taking a hold behind the knees, maybe the shins or ankles, maybe the outer edges of the feet. We come into happy baby pose. And take a moment here first to find some balance between being completely curled up and really feeling the stretch in the low back, and having that sacrum grounded and really isolating the stretch in the hips. So you can kind of rock back and forth here and notice what happens when you bring the knees closer in versus grounding that sacrum. And you decide what your body needs most in this moment. Once you've found it, you sigh in relief. And then slowly let go of that. Do anything else you need to do, maybe some circles, maybe some rocks back and forth. And I'm going to suggest this is where the wall comes in handy. If you have that wall close by, to do your final relaxation with the legs up the wall. So you might have a bolster like me or a cushion that you can put up against the wall like this, or you might not. It works with either way. You're going to sit those hips right close into the wall so that you're sitting beside the wall. And then this requires a little bit of finesse here. You lay down and sweep those legs up the wall. Now, the reason we start sitting beside the wall like that is we want the hips to be as close into the wall as possible so that there's almost no space once you get the legs up there between your sit bones and the wall. It's kind of impossible to get it perfect, but we want to get them as close as possible. And then once they're up the wall, then you let your legs be at whatever width they feel comfortable. Usually hip width is about right, because then they can stack and fall into the hip joint. And then we relax there. So if we have a bolster under us, it lifts the hips up slightly and then allows the upper body, the upper spine to curve down onto the mat, but it's not necessary. You can do it without the elevation as well. With the arms, you decide where you want them. And then you close your eyes. This also works if you have a couch nearby or a chair, by draping the legs at 90 degrees on the couch or chair. And they're not necessarily stacked and straight like this, but we get the same sigh of relief in the hip joint as we kind of take some of that pressure and reverse the flow. Once you've made it into your final relaxation, you close your eyes and you notice. You notice again what the room feels like around you. The air on your skin, the light in the room, the sounds, distant or far or near. You notice the internal environment, the rhythm of the breath, the beating of the heart. This is your time to be. Absolutely no expectations, nothing you need to be, no performance. And even if you fall asleep, trust that that is where you need to be right now. Often we see rules and standards as a way to keep ourselves in line. But what happens when we start to follow the awareness of our bodies, the wisdom inside, instead, especially in movement practice, spiritual practice, really life practice? I'm not saying we shouldn't follow rules, but we all moved in alignment to that guiding light inside. What might happen? How much more grounded could we be? How much stronger might we feel? And bit by bit, we practice this on the mat as we converse with our bodies, as we listen to the messages, and off the mat. As we stay honest and true to ourselves. How much better could it get? Stay here or slowly make your way back. Make sure you thank yourselves before you return. I thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day or evening or night. Namaste.